I was born post-war, so I didn't live on the island myself, but the reference point was my father and my grandmother and grandfather on his side of the family. And my grandfather had a gas station on Terminal Island right on the edge of the Japanese section, the Fish Harbor section. And the other communities on Terminal Island, well, which were not Japanese, but were very multi-ethnic. And my father's life on Terminal Island was sort of on that border. He was a third generation Japanese American, so his parents, second generation, both could speak English very fluently and Japanese. His mother was a Japanese school teacher, as well as she worked at the immigration office. So because of their bilingualism, they were sought after by neighbors, community people, just to interpret whether it was a formal announcement from school or an immigration issue or just culture. So that's where my dad was. My dad was sort of in this crossover situation where, because he could speak English as well and didn't speak that much Japanese, ironically, his mother was a Japanese language school teacher. But because of that position, his view of, I believe, Terminal Island was a little different. He, for example, oftentimes got into altercations with some of the older Japanese American boys, not because he did anything wrong, but because the older boys were in Japanese school and my grandmother was known as a disciplinarian. So obviously they couldn't take out their concerns or frustrations or anger at the sensei, the teacher. So of course the logical target then was my dad. So my dad recounts different times where he, along with his Italian, Croatian, Mexican, all different kinds of ethnic friends, because of that part of the island, would fight with the Japanese, what's called yogeres, the bad boys. And this, of course, was just growing up. And growing up in Terminal Island, as my father describes it, is an interesting story to be told. It was a very colorful life there because of any port town, but an isolated island in the middle of a port that is based upon people that come from countries where fishing is a real thing, whether it's a country the shape of a boot that sticks out into the Mediterranean, or the Croatian Dalmatian coast, or islands called Japan. So even though speaking all these different languages, even though most of them were first generation, second generation, a few, they still had to get along because they were all a part of the big fishing industry in San Pedro. And my dad talks about it from the standpoint of almost like Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, about diving off the pilings at the wharf and going to Dead Man's Island and making his way through the castor bean trees as they try to get to pick up the discarded lumber that washes up on the shore because they're going to make a raft to go out into the channel. And he talks about it very affectionately, and I could always tell pretty quickly whether my father liked one of my brother's friends or one of my friends. And that was because eventually he would say, well, you want to go see Terminal Island? So we would take friends, family. We would go to Terminal Island, not on a regular basis, but on a periodic basis as a touchstone for the Furutani family.